Welcome to Viva La Visionary, the podcast that celebrates the innovative ideas and mindsets of entrepreneurs and visionaries. Join your host, Coach Bob Schittefeld, as he dives into inspiring stories and practical insights from trailblazers who are changing the game. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned leader, this show is your source for motivation and creativity. Let's embark on this exciting journey together.
Hi there, Coach Bob here. Excited to host another episode of Viva La Visionary. Long live the visionary, and speaking with visionaries, about visionaries, for visionaries, to visionaries. And I'm very excited to have my very good friend Jeanet Wade with us. Jeanet, how are you?
I'm awesome, Bob. How are you today?
Awesome. Well, great to reconnect. Probably the biggest thing I love about podcasts is it gives me a reason to reach out and connect with people that I learn from and love, and you're one of those. So awesome. So I like to start with a simple question, Jeanet. Why are you on this planet? And then we'll get deep.
That's kind of the constant driven quest of any visionary, right? To figure out why we're here. And
Right.
then once you think you figured it out, you try to find another reason why you're here.
Exactly.
And then
Or
you
make it better.
reinvent
Right.
another. You create reasons for why other people should be here.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that probably has shifted every year.
Sure.
And right now, it's about making a huge impact for my clients and seeing. So I redid my 10-year target. So what am I aiming for in my core?
Right.
And why do I deserve to exist? And I remember my first 10-year target I set was like, I want $1 million, or it was some kind of dollar revenue driven.
Right.
I was like, that doesn't resonate with me. Why am I here? And so I made it this past year. So I'm like now going into 9, but it's 100 wow impact stories for my clients. Not just that they got revenue growth or profitability, but I'm making a real, like almost shocking impact.
Right.
And I love that drives me because I want to help other visionaries create.
So I love that, and I'm learning to put emotions and story behind more of my communication. So I love that amazing wow impact. That's so cool. I mean, I feel it, and I've witnessed it, which is awesome. So I know you are an EOS implementer for many, many years, 1,000 sessions, I think I heard you say. That's unbelievable. And I know you had a lot of impact there, but you've also, I know you do speaking. You spoke at our very first Visionary Summit. Thank you. That was 4.5, almost 5 years ago. And we just finished our 8th one in the fall, which is amazing. And then I want to spend a minute talking about your first book, Human Team. And then I know you have a new book coming out, if we could talk about that. I love a great title and I love a great tagline. I just think even for my coaching clients, it's like, so what's the title of your book? It's like, I don't know if I'm going to write a book. Well, if you did. And it's the title, but then it's the catchy tagline. So it's the Human Team. So for your first book, you created a team, but people showed up. So just tell me a little bit about what that is and the lesson, a couple of things that you are teaching regarding the human team.
Yeah, we always seem to be surprised. We make all these great visions and plans, and then we're surprised when people don't go along with it,
Right.
or they have emotion around it, or we have negativity, positivity, all these things that what we call in the book human moments.
Right.
Like we have all these human moments that show up, and then we're baffled by it and befuddled by it or frustrated by it, right? And I know Gino Wickman would say 82% of our issues are people related. It's why EOS is a human energy management system at its core.
Right.
And so we tend to forget, well, great, all the plans in the world and all the thoughts in the world, but what's going to make this happen to achieve your purpose and your profitability is people. That's
Right.
the third leg of the stool. And instead of getting frustrated about it, what if we really embraced it and put them at the center of everything to activate human potential?
Oh, love it. That's so good. And again, you were great at presenting at our summit. That was very cool. And I have many more questions, but so another book coming out. And so what is that?
That one is titled Grow, How
Right.
Entrepreneurial Leaders Optimize for Growth. And it's technically an expansion and republish of a book from a colleague of mine, Jonathan B. Smith. He
Yep.
wrote a book called Optimize for Growth. And we've expanded it, added more research to it, and talk about the compounding effect for entrepreneurs and their businesses if they have 3 things: a company operating system, a coach for their individual growth and support, and a community of peers. And when you put those 3 things together, you end up having this compounding effect in leveraging or optimizing
Right.
and growth in your organization that goes beyond your dreams. And a lot of people will go, well, I'm doing one of those. Isn't that enough? And I'm like, not really, because you're not getting enough perspective. Your one-on-one coach might be an isolated. They're only hearing your point of view in your company, building trust with your leadership team and your organization. And then this peer group gives you these other, what I think is like info sponging.
Right.
Like, oh, you do that in that industry. What if I did that? And you
Yep.
face, I feel seen and heard, and all these different challenges and innovations can happen. And when you combine all three, like that's where the real impact and magic happens. And that's how I built my network of connectors. That's how
Right.
I've impacted my clients, is getting them engaged in all three, and not just only like, so being abundance minded, not scarcity minded, like you can only work with me, that's the only solution, is not how I see things.
Right. Well, and everything happens for a reason, Jeanette, which I think you believe in that as well. And for us to connect, and I want to ask a question about connectors, but as you know me fairly well, I was an implementer for 9 years. I was Gino's third client, one of the biggest fans probably ever of EOS. And it's amazing. And I implemented for 9 years, which was fun. And I'm all about coaching and community. And so I definitely want to connect with you and Jonathan. I know Jonathan from a long time ago. So thank you for putting that out there for those of us, for us visionaries, but also for those of us who are working on a couple of those areas. So that's amazing. So I do want to ask about connectors. Because I know you coach boot camp for new EOS implementers, and you used to run the quarterly meetings for implementers, and you taught some lessons. One lesson that I heard from you, and I know this could be a 3-hour workshop, but in general, how did you define connectors? Because when you were talking about this as an implementer, I'm like, I have 100 connectors. And then when you explained it, I'm like, ooh, maybe I have 1 or 2. So can you briefly explain the different levels of connectors?
Yeah, and you'll hear different terms for those who might not understand the term connector, because I think in our EOS community, we talk connector, and in the external world, we might call them centers of influence, referral partners, other kinds of terms. So just for shorthand, we're going to call them connectors. But it's about looking at connectors as different layers of relationship.
Right.
And if you look at everyone you know as a connector, they really are different types. And so what you want, the true connector, true center of influence, are really what we've called ambassadors. They're the ones who will open up another country, and you open up your country to them, and you say, hey, let me tell you about the other country.
Right.
We should share information and become partners in some way. And typically you're only dealing with, because if you think about relational trust and where you're really collaborative with others, really super engaged, it's typically 3 to 7, maybe 10 to 12 people.
Yep. Right.
And so it's a very small, I often say, if you have more than 6 to 12, those aren't really your true connectors.
Yep.
Now, the next layer would be my advocates in the world. If I host an event or like launching the book next week, they're the ones who'll buy my book or tell, if someone asks about me, they will vet me and say she's awesome. So they're advocating for me, but they don't really connect me to anything. It'd be haphazard and organic. A lot of us have, especially visionaries, we tend to have a lot of acquaintances.
Yes. Right.
I know 100 and 150 people.
Right.
And they're great for your newsletter, for your LinkedIn connection. Maybe if you host an event, and I tend to want to, I want to see them. I love them, have coffee with them. I will talk all day. But where visionaries, and this is where I channel what little bit of follow through I have, is trying to organize these areas, because I will spend a lot of time with my acquaintances, and I'll feel fulfillment and joy and love because I want to give in that emotional space. But I don't really gain a lot, neither do they. So I'm thinking of the law of reciprocity. We can have a lot of coffee and no gain for either of us.
Right.
But there's a time and place for my acquaintances to come together. And so sometimes hosting a holiday party or saying, hey, I'm attending this industry event in our local market. I hope you attend it too, so I can run into you and say hi.
Right.
And so casually inviting them to the spaces I'll already be in versus spending a lot of time. But I spend a lot of time with my 6 to 12 and maybe up to almost 20, because I'm a visionary, you can't stop. But it's let a few more in. But so I organize them. I have a little group I've formed that's just the really tight group, but I call them my inner circle. And so we get together and we get really, really deep, and we really truly challenge each other. It's kind of a coaches circle, like coaches that coach each other. Right. And then I'm also in a peer group with a Vistage group. Those are probably more a mix of my ambassadors and advocates.
Right.
It's kind of a 50-50 spread. And my LinkedIn network is mostly my acquaintances. But I love them all. And so I don't want them to feel like well, I can only talk to you once a year. But if you're going to be productive with your time and your energy and how you're going to make an impact in the world, there's a lot of tough yeses and nos to make. And so segmenting my connectors help me build better, deeper relationships at the right layer of relationship.
The perfect timing, because we're doing that. We have the Visionary Forum, and not the whole forum is like that. Every member, but one of our kind of taglines is we don't network to each other, we network for each other. So we might be at a level 3 as opposed to 4, but there are a few that we're like, how do we go deep? And it's interesting, we were trying to come up with a name for it. So almost like a trusted ally, but I love some of your other things. And one quick example of how this helped me when I became an implementer, it was what I heard is to reach out to 5 or 10 people and are you truly one of my ambassadors? And one guy I knew from the entrepreneur organization, and we were good, and we knew each other, respected each other. He actually referred me to one of my first clients. So he's a fan of EOS. He likes me, and I'm like, hey, will you be an ambassador? He's like, okay, so what does that mean? And I said, well, and I explained, you will literally network for me. And he's like, dude, if someone asks who's a good implementer, I will recommend you, but I'm not going to be an ambassador. I'm like, thank you. And again, so I didn't expect that. So that was a great exercise for me. And I'm going through that again now because I want to hang out with more people and not say, come on, Jeanet, come on, promote me. It's like, how can I promote you? And again, I already trust you and know you. So whether it be your book or what you're doing. So thank you for that clarification. That's awesome. So a couple questions here. When did you first know you were a visionary?
I think I may have discovered it when I worked at a joint venture with American Express, and we were in a division that often they would say that's the rogue division because we were innovating, right? And I was on the team. I'm not on the patent, but I was on the team that created the first gift card in the world.
Really?
And then I was, so this was like mid 90s. Right. And then I, because the internet was relatively new right about that time, they're like, well, the young chick can take on, like, she would know technology, because I could email. Right. And they said, well, let's have her figure out the internet. And so I was like trying to figure out how to get technology teams and marketing teams to work together because each of them wanted to own websites and trying to figure out how we launch new things in the world and all this through the internet, which now we have AI as a new layer, right? So right. I was like early days of internet. And so I think looking back, I probably realized that I was driven in that way. When other people would have 10 projects, I would have 60. And I would be right. coming up with other things. And so I always had this kind of high quick start energy, even in corporate America. Right. And then I got frustrated. And I still didn't think I had the word visionary in my head at that time, but I was frustrated. And so I went out into the world and became a general contractor of marketing or chief growth officer for hire, helping not just with the marketing, communications, and promotions, but helping with product development, business model creation, which is helping visionaries create new things, right? So I was really active in that space as of that was November 2000 when I broke out, and I said, I'm going to be the Madison Avenue level marketing agency for the Midwest. And I'm going to have an impact with this business model, product development, service creation, making an impact, not just promoting it. And obviously then I had a lot of general contractor marketing means I also had subcontractors deliver all the execution. Right. But it was I think it was when I first heard the term visionary, it was truly out of the book Traction with Gino. And I was like, oh, that might be me. Right. Right. No, that defines my whole life all of a sudden. Right. I can go back to childhood and probably share things that I did too, where I was inventing and driving my cousins mad.
Right. No, absolutely. And again, I think the first time I really understood the word other than Walt Disney and whatnot was when, and Gino was my coach. I'm like, you know what? I shouldn't run a business. This is stupid. Who are we fooling? And he's like, no, you can. And it's like, but if you have a process, especially an integrator, and sure enough, that is just, it makes me so happy that I have a place to vent and to have ideas and someone who can help me to discern for me maybe. But yeah, that was the first time that I realized that what that term meant. So I appreciate that. So what's one thing that you've learned either personally or professionally that you would share to other visionaries as this was a big aha, a big turning point when I started this or stopped that helped you as a visionary?
I had to purposefully take space for my own healing.
Oh,
My mental healing, my physical healing, all of that, because visionary madness or visionary DNA or any of
right.
that can actually cause a lot of health and anxiety problems.
Yes.
And if let out of control, and I would get my hyperachiever running and my controller running and the creation going, and I would burn myself out and I would not have anything left to give.
Right.
So it's kind of the put the oxygen mask on yourself first thinking. But when I started to meditate, do hypnotherapy, do activities that started to make me feel centered, I
Right.
could focus more and harness that visionary energy in the right directions. Because one of the things we know about harnessing energy is visionaries can really spread it too thin
Yep.
and end up not really making the impact they really want to make, instead
Right.
of saying, I'm going to do this and I can cut diamonds like laser beams, right? So I started to find that when I got centered in myself, I could get to a core of something that I could focus on, and then only like one thing at a time. And I still do. I say one thing at a time. It's more like three things at a time.
Right, but it's
But
not 30.
it's
Right.
not 30.
Right. Right. No, you're preaching to the choir, and I'm learning as you're speaking because I've been going through a lot of that and teaching some of it. So I love it. What's one thing that you're working on now, or that's not necessarily keeping you up at night, but it's not an issue, but an opportunity that you're working on now?
So
Obviously the book, but
yeah, the Grow book's coming out, and we just started a thing at EOS. It's the Franchise Advisory Council, and 11 of us got elected by our peers to support and help the leadership team at EOS Worldwide and the board of directors when they need advice and counsel.
right,
And that has been kind of innovator visionary behind innovators, visionaries, or entrepreneurs experience for all of us on the FAC, meaning that we're really getting in and trying to really help and support without, obviously without putting our own vision into it, but saying, how can we really be a catalyst to things? So that's something I'm putting my heart and soul into right now.
I love it.
And just like I said, the 100 wow impacts over 10 years, and trying to gather and collect those so that I can see the real impact that entrepreneurs and visionaries can make in the world.
Love it.
And that's probably a third book.
Right, I know.
On
I've
accident.
laughed. Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to have 10 books, and people are like, come on, dude. And so I have one, but I've got a couple more coming. And then I know you've had some good press recently. So it was it Innovator and Entrepreneurs, or was it? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's actually in January 2026. In the Top 100 magazine, they have a publication coming out called the Top 100 Innovators and Entrepreneurs. It's a nationwide publication here in the States. And I was selected to be one of the top 100 innovators and entrepreneurs. And they interviewed me and they said, while you are this visionary, you are also an innovator and entrepreneur behind innovators and entrepreneurs. So I think that's going to be the title of the article. And they expanded it from one page because we had so much content to 2 pages. So I'm really excited to kind of share that, because it's one of those things where I think I come across as an integrator, meaning I don't always have to take credit.
Right.
And so I'm behind the scenes of innovators and entrepreneurs while I am one. I'm not always front stage.
Right.
So, but I am a visionary.
Well, it's interesting because before I hit record, I'm like, I know she's a visionary, but I had to ask because you actually get shit done. And a lot of visionaries don't. So no, it's amazing how many things you've innovated. I love it. So I've got a couple more questions, but do you have any either other things to add for visionaries, questions for me, any other ahas? Because you've done so many things, and I'm so glad that we reconnected. But anything else you want to share before I ask a couple last questions?
I sat next to a visionary on the flight home last night, and he must have sensed that I must coach visionaries.
Right.
You can't hide it.
Oozing out of you.
It's oozing out of me. I didn't even have a book in front of me or anything for him to question. But
Right.
he just started sharing, and then as he got deeper into it and sharing what he believed in, and like they always have, I believe in this, and this is how I do. Like there's always a definitive kind of thread to them, and I can sense that there was also frustration behind all of that.
Right.
And I sat there for an hour and 10 minutes and listened.
Right.
and just listened to the joy and a
Right.
little bit of the thread of pain. And I don't know, I think a lot of visionaries don't know they're in pain.
Yep.
Because when I asked a few questions about like the frustration or the pain, no, that's not a problem. Like a cover up went in.
Right. Yep.
And I said, so at some point he's going to realize that there's something behind all of that. And I said, because he said, no, I said something about feedback, and I forget what the topic was we were on. And he goes, I don't ever get any positive feedback. I only get negative feedback. And I said, would you like some positive feedback? And he goes, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. And so you realize a lot of visionaries feel they go it alone.
Right.
And they feel frustrated that humans won't row in that direction with them. So people showed up. And that they're dealing with a lot of innovation that's really great, and people don't always see it as great. It's a change. People are wired to resist.
Right.
So they feel like they're being held back. Or if it is something where people want change, they're only hearing the negative, like, why are we doing this? And you're pushing us out of our comfort zone, and the challenge they're getting, and not enough of fulfillment of their own soul, that without you in the world, we have no innovations and impact and things that happen.
Right.
And so you need to, again, kind of coming back to you got to find it for yourself.
Right.
And so someday I hope to be on that same flight with him, and he's able to take positive feedback.
Right. He'll be a testimonial for your book. No, I appreciate that. So a couple things. One, from that, like, I know when I ask people about visionaries, a response I often get is a little self-centered, a little egotistical. And as I've worked with hundreds of visionaries over 30 years, I find so many of them, and maybe it's not all, but so many of them really deeply care, but they almost don't know how to. Any comments around that? Because again, it's like, in a coaching session or an EOS session when I was doing that, it's like, oh, he thinks about it for himself. And then he's kind of in the corner, or she's just like, they just care about people, but they almost don't know how to express it. Any comments or thoughts around that? Because I think a lot of visionaries are actually deeper and want to help people more than maybe we put out there.
Yes, no, I've seen that too. And I'm not sure what it is. And I think there was a book, and I don't remember it, that talked about the entrepreneurial or visionary DNA, and that it is in your genetic code. If you,
right.
Some of us, I think much like connectors, there's different layers of visionaries.
Yes.
And some of them are like, they can't change it. It's in their DNA. If they took a blood test, they'd be like, oh, I've got the driven gene.
Right.
And so those with the driven gene, I think, find that they're going so fast and so far beyond others that others can't relate to them.
Right.
But they desperately want to be relatable.
Yep.
And so because sometimes, like, if I've talked to another person on a plane, they almost looked at me like I have three heads because I make no sense to them.
Right.
And so while I want to have caring empathy and reach out and have connection to that person, it's really hard for them to connect with the way I speak or where I'm going and how much I'm energized by certain things. And you got to that's why the peer groups are so important, why your visionary forum's so important, because they need to be around others like them to hear, right, you're not insane. You're actually normal for who you are. You're not normal to the rest of the world.
Right.
But you're normal for a visionary.
Right.
And I think it's hard for people to see how much they care because of that.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And then what would be, we talk a lot about our seats in the accountability chart. So what do you feel is are a couple of the roles and responsibilities of us visionaries?
Yeah. And so, obviously textbook is
right.
Culture, like not so much being the HR, leader of culture, but being the origin and the source and the walk the talk on culture, that people are watching you and you need to have very clear what you want intentionally.
Right.
And then those bigger relationships and ideas and the maybe being your own ambassador for your company, the face of the company, getting yourself involved. I think obsessively about the customer and the target market and what you're trying to do in the world, what this thing you've created is trying to impact. You need to really ask. You need to be out there. I think some of the best ones, I've heard their stories and I won't remember who they are, but I read a lot of books about other visionaries. And the best ones are always like, well, I went to the grocery store and I asked our customers what they think. And I wandered around like almost like undercover boss style. Right. And they just really obsess with trying to figure it out, or they info sponge a lot. I think part of the role of a visionary is to look at, don't be so isolated in your industry. I only create this kind of widget in the world. But if you looked at other industries and what they're doing and you kind of snack about with all those different ideas and you're like, ooh, how could I assemble that? Because that's where new creation comes from. Because almost everything exists already.
Right.
It's the assembly of all those parts that hasn't existed before.
Right. And I find that we're not necessarily, and I'm stereotyping, but we're definitely not good at managing process, but we see big processes and see gaps. And I think that's a lot of like, wait a minute, this isn't being done, or could we do that? And sometimes I try to solve too many of those things, but it's so stay in my lane a little bit. But
if a visionary leans into it, they're really obsessive personalities. Like they're
oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I picture Steve Jobs, and I've seen video parodies and movies about it. Like, I want one button,
Right.
Obsession, like make the iPhone one button. And I think they get, if they can get honed in, it's such a rally cry. But unfortunately, many times they get slapped or shamed or parodied in a negative way for it. But without that passion and that obsession and that focus on just a few things in their role, they don't make the impact. They need to make that, like, that obsession is their superpower.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's what I find is a lot of us, we just want to prove ourselves, not even for our own ego, but to leave a mark. And I find a lot of visionaries are becoming coaches, whether it's a paid coach or not, but coach inside the business. I think that's one of the roles and responsibility for a lot of us. Because
Coaching, mentor, not a manager. I often will say mentor, not a manager.
Right, right, exactly. Awesome. Well, I'd love to talk for 4 more hours, but I know we all have things to do. So my last question, the rally cry we have at the Visionary Forum and the name of this podcast is Viva La Visionary. Does that evoke anything, or what would that mean to you, Viva La Visionary?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Right.
You're going to charge the hill. You're going to take a bunch of people with you. So, show up for the challenge. Let's go.
Show up for the fun and the challenge. I love it. Cool. Well, Jeanet, again, I so respect so many things that you do. And again, I love this podcast that it gives me a reason to reach out. Not that I need it, but I didn't realize about the new book. So I'm excited to have you be an ambassador for you. That's what I want to do, because you're amazing, and you've affected me and many other visionaries. I appreciate that and respect that.
I appreciate you too, Bob. I'm so glad we had this excuse to talk.
All right. Well, we will talk soon. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Viva La Visionary. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found inspiration in our guest stories. If you loved what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and share the podcast with fellow dreamers and doers. Join us next time as we continue to explore the limitless possibilities of visionary thinking. Until then, keep dreaming big and taking action. Your vision matters.